Why did I stay with my shitty ex? Am I in a toxic relationship? How am I going to move on and find love? We're your hosts, Izzy
and Meredith,
and welcome to ExFacts, Relationships and Breakups. Relationships are confusing. When they end, we're left picking up the pieces and wondering what went wrong. So, each episode on ExFacts, we'll hear stories from real people sharing their experiences in relationships. We'll also hear from experts to help us uncover the deeper meaning behind our actions and emotions. At the end of every episode, we'll answer a listener's question. No topic is off limits, so ask us anything you want to know. From conflict and healing to dating and love, ExFacts will take you on a mind-blowing journey to explore all aspects of our amazing, imperfect, frustrating relationships. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our next episode of ExFacts, Relationships and Breakups. We're your hosts, Izzy and Meredith. So, I'm really excited for the show today.
So our guest today is Moni. She is actually a neighbor of mine who lives in my neighborhood, and she has a very unique and interesting relationship situation that I never cease to have more questions about. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and just give a little bit of background about your situation and how it came to be, and then we can discuss.
I'm an East Indian woman, born in Calcutta.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, married to a Norwegian Minnesotan who grew up in Duluth, Minnesota. We've been married for 33 years.
So like just white as fuck. Let me just establish that.
Yeah, he's blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. And we made really beautiful kids.
You did. They're very hot.
And 20 years ago, Rich had a very dear friend who became sort of our family friend, very dear to all of us. The kids kind of looked at him as an uncle, and he was very dear to us. And 11 years ago, roughly 11 years ago, I turned to him and I said, so, hey, when are you going to get married? You know, like, you've done your education, you finished your PhD, you've got a great job. When are you going to get married? Mm-hmm. And he said, I can't get married. And I said, why is that? And he goes, because I'm in love with you.
Oh my God.
And so I said, oh, okay.
Cute, casual, no big deal.
And he goes, well, how do you feel about me? And I said, well, I love you too. And he goes, my God, what do we do now? And I said, we were traveling. We were actually overseas. We were in India for my niece's wedding because I didn't want to go stag. And he said that he would go to the wedding with me. So we're sitting 13,000 miles away from Rich, my husband. So I said, we got to call Rich. So we called Rich, and he said, I need 24 hours to process this. And I was
so wait, can we back up for a second? How did you like frame that during the phone call? Like what?
I said, we're having a very intense evening. I know it's morning for you. It's evening for us here in Calcutta. And I said, I've never lied to you. And I respect you too much to even like keep something of this magnitude for a day. But I have to tell you that he just told me, I'm not going to use his name, but he just told me that he's in love with me. And Rich goes, okay. And he goes, and how do you feel? And I said, I think I'm in love with him too. And I said, but this has nothing to do with not loving you. We have a perfect thing. You realize that. And so he said, I've known this. I've known that he loves you for a long time.
Wow.
Well, duh.
And when I told the kids, my son's comment, who was at the time he was 17, he said, well, thank God you two stopped lying to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And my daughter said, love can never be wrong.
Oh, that's profound.
So if you can depict it as being in love, then the emotions
so what
are
was
that
his initial reaction, and then like how did that whole process unfold?
So Rich said I need 24 hours, and he did. He called us back in 24 hours. And he said, I feel like
24 hours for what though? Did you like propose?
just for him to be in his quiet place to process. To
imagine, so just like to deal with the thought, like you didn't have any like game plan yet or anything.
Right. And you know, I mean, the biggest question, of course, that I mean, anybody who listens to this podcast or anyone is like, oh, so what's your sex life like? Well,
yeah, you know, I thought we would build up to that, but if you want to get into it,
I'm just gonna say it. You know, my sex life is it's about my intimacy individually with each of them. Mm-hmm. The three of us have never and will never and can never sleep together.
And the two of them don't. Either.
And the two of them do not. Right. They're each other's best friends. They're like brothers.
Can I just say that's like the biggest dick energy of all time that you have over there? You're like, just like what more should be, because I'm great.
No, and you know, like even how is that dialogue communicated? It's really simple. We in our household we have an open bedroom door policy. Like if the kids are visiting or we have a house guest, the bedroom door is always open. But if the bedroom door is closed,
stay away. Do you ever put a sock on?
No, it just means the bedroom door is closed. Don't come in. Yeah, you know.
Has there ever been any jealousy in that regard?
I think that our situation is so unique because these are two really brilliant men who have their insecurity. I mean, what human being doesn't have their insecurities?
Sure.
But their insecurities do not lie
in that realm.
Regarding the three of us.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that our partner probably, again, I'm not going to say his name, but our partner probably has an issue at times because he sees the societal legitimizing of marriage in terms of, you know, Rich and I have a piece of paper. We have 2 children together. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So he feels somewhat inadequate, like societally.
Yeah, there's like a social construct that you simply can't ignore. That exists in society. I mean, here we are, and we're still having a dialogue about, you know, the LGBT community having the right to get married, and you know, the Supreme Court that we have right now. But you know, our marriage is recognized in countries like Brazil.
Mm-hmm. What about Utah?
No, Utah, no.
Only men.
And it's polygamy, but not polyamorous, which is what we are.
So you identify as polyamorous?
I don't identify as anything. I identify as like, I'm one crazy chick that thinks it's going to make
I'm obsessed with it.
Hello.
It's amazing. Yeah. I just have to like commend Rich for being open-minded and accepting and not like, I mean, again, I don't know the ins and outs, but like hateful of the new partner. And
well, I mean, you know,
all of you have just
because it's not all peaches and cream.
Well, right? Sure.
I mean, I think the one thing that was really hard for Richie was the death of his friendship.
Yeah. Oh, really? Is that how we feel? Is that how he feels now?
I think he feels that it was the death of a friendship.
Well, it like cocooned into a butterfly. That was something different.
Well, I think what has happened is, you know, it's that, where did I read this? I think I read it in the New York Times, where it was, you know, Carole King's song, "You've Got a Friend." is the #1 song of the 20th century.
I prefer You're So Vain, but
yeah. Yeah. So the funny thing is, though, friendship doesn't have responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
No, friendship has a responsibility of like staying in touch, but it doesn't have the nitty-gritty responsibilities that a marriage does.
Well, it's not that deep. Yeah, it's like a very mild version. Yeah.
Yeah, just think about like you have a really good friend, and now that friend becomes a roommate. Think of that transition.
Yeah.
And then the roommate becomes your spouse. And that's basically what happened for us. Because while he was doing his PhD, he came to live with us. So he was a really good friend, and then he did his PhD and lived with us. And then when he went to do his postdoc, that's when he left. And but would come home every weekend. So we went from friends, roommate, back to friends, and then jumped into being each other's spouse.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you guys were living together beforehand. Do you think that like contributed to making it easier for him to move back in, and that kind of, I know it's different, like the relationship, but at least like your husband, maybe
you would experience each other
in the house. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be like, oh, why is there this random person here? You know?
No, I mean, you know, Izzy, it's funny. I never actually thought about it. I don't know that it made it easier. Maybe for me it did. I don't know if it did for Rich. I mean, the one thing I will tell you is the three of us sleep in a giant California king-size bed.
I just want to sing Rihanna all day, right?
So that we can have that end of the day conversation, which we often do.
Do you sleep in the middle?
Oh my God. Can I freaking tell you? Yes.
Yes, you can. Please do.
Oh my God. No. So neither one of them snores.
Oh, that's good.
Bless your heart. You're a lucky lady. Don't get me started.
No, but they have a unique whistle.
Oh, that might be worse.
One goes flee, and the other one goes flee.
It's like Marco Polo.
Yes. So yeah, it's just, you know, the relationship just had to go through these different iterations. And I don't think we actually, although, you know, all three of us are pretty intellectual and we overanalyze, we didn't overanalyze this. And that
I think that's a sign of intellect and being evolved, right? Is to not overanalyze. You knew enough to be like, I recognize that this may not be like societally popular, but I know that it's correct for me and us. I think that's like a sign of, you know, superior intelligence.
Here's the fun fact too, is that when I told like my cousin, who I'm pretty close to, she said, you know, if anything doesn't work out, you realize that everybody's going to say it was your fault and you're the harlot.
Yeah, but they're going to say that anyway because you're a woman.
Right. No,
that's what people are saying about me, which, you know, they're going to do that anyway.
She would come and she would visit. She lives in New Jersey, and she would come and she'd visit, and she goes, oh my God, you're so lucky. They both love you. They adore you. And I said, really, am I lucky or are they lucky?
Oh, twist. But also though, to your point, that's a lot more work that you have to be doing. Like you're lucky, sure, that two people love you unconditionally, but you're simultaneously in two marriages, and marriage is hard enough as I certainly know.
I know. I mean, I couldn't be dating two of my boyfriend. I'd go freaking crazy.
He's a unique situation. Love him though I do. I wanted to ask you, because this is actually like important to me personally. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not shy about like discussing your situation. You're open about it. You're confident about it. And I think at least within the neighborhood, from what I've seen, like people are very accepting of you and don't seem to overtly challenge you. And I, on the other hand, am a neighborhood pariah, and I'm not married to two dudes. So how?
Well, but
how
you know
is
what?
it that
Here's the
think?
funny thing. I think that, well, I have certain salient quotes that always stick in my head. And one of them is Maya Angelou has a line that she says, please be responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. That was her line.
Are you telling me I have bad energy?
So if I'm going to be all,
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, if I'm going to be all shy and weird and feel inhibited and suggest that something I'm doing is dirty or wrong, then that's how people are going to respond to me. So I'm not going to allow that.
That's
so I'm responsible.
So true. I think that's probably the difference is you walk into it like confident and you're like, this is fucking what's happening, deal with it. And I think for a long time was like, I want to be who I am, but don't judge me.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to someone, I might have been on the podcast, but like, you have to like treat yourself how you want other people to treat you. And I think I've struggled with that for such a long time. Yeah. And just be like unapologetic, like no wavering, no doubt. Do you think that is maybe the difference? Like why no one fucks with you and they fuck with me constantly?
I think the reality for me is I'm not confident. I just don't know how to be dishonest.
Well, neither do I. I think you are very confident.
Or you come off as confident.
Well,
I feel like there's a difference a lot of times. I mean, I get told, it's weird hearing other people's perceptions of you. And I feel like it's a lot of times it's really different from how you see yourself or how you truly are.
People are like, you're so confident. You're like, I hate myself.
Yeah, I know. People think I'm like, at work, it's like completely.
It's just because we're well-spoken and educated. And I don't know, maybe we took a public speaking class or some shit.
I definitely did not.
Well, I was a child lesbian.
No, I don't know how to like kind of play that game of like, oh, hi, this is who I am. And
you don't know how to be demure. Yeah.
I don't. I just rather just dive in. Do we connect? Are we clicking? Is there something here that should be shared or investigated? And if there's not,
see you later.
Let's not waste our time.
Who do you like when you meet people? Do you come straight out and say it to everyone, or like are there some places like work or other places
because,
where you're like,
that's a really good question, Izzy, because I think that if I came out and said, hi, I'm Audrey and I'm married to two men.
I have two husbands.
I'm not about proselytizing. I'm not I'm not proud of how we live. I know, and I'm not.
Well, I think you should be, because it's remarkable that you guys are able to function.
No, this just happened.
Yeah.
And that's the reality for so many people who fall in love, right?
And you're not trying to like convert someone to do it. You're just, this is
and
just
I'm not even asking anyone to understand it. Like, this is what it is.
Us. Yeah.
Understand it or don't. But if you want to be my friend, you have to respect that this does exist.
Even if you might not agree. Do you have friends who don't necessarily agree with it, but that they love you and they sort of just respect it, like you said, and let it?
I have friends who have distanced themselves. They love me. They haven't written me off. But they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
What about people like you said you were Indian, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So I know the culture there is different, and family is different there and stuff. So how does your family understand your situation? And then how does
well, my father did not speak to me for 18 months.
Wow. Yeah.
When I told him.
Are you guys good now?
Yes. In fact, so I'll take a long story and make it really short. So I told him, and he called up Rich and said, you know, my God, what are you exposing the kids to, and how are they comprehending this? And Rich kind of got his back up and he said, listen, we love each other. We're not like, you know, doing something illegal. We love each other.
Yeah, it's all love.
And then my dad, who is a very liberal minded, my God, radically liberal minded, left feather of the left wing kind of guy.
Yeah.
I went to go see him, and he said, I need to know what your ethics are. And I said, okay. And I said, you know what, Dad, give me a day to think about that one, and I'll come back to you. So what
do you think he was getting at with that question though? Because it seems like he was targeting something very specific.
Yeah, that what are your ethics in terms of, like, you've said that you're married to one person and you're going to spend your life with them.
So he was basically just challenging
what are the ethics of this, again, this societal construct.
Right.
And so I said, so I went back the next day and I said, you know, I figured out what my ethics are. And he goes, what is that? And I said, honesty.
Yeah.
Honesty and love. Yeah. I
mean, I have to be honest and true to who I am. I mean, Rich could have turned to me and said, forget about him. And he would never know what's actually happening in my brain. Right.
But the important thing, I think, is that you gave him that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that makes it different. I mean, it doesn't sound like, I mean, again, I don't know the ins and outs of your relationship, but it doesn't seem like you forced it upon him. This was a choice that you guys all decided to make together.
No,
you know?
and it's funny, Izzy, you were talking about it from a cultural standpoint. So one of my, I would say, a little more provincial friends in India, I came out of the closet.
Euphemism.
Yeah, I came out of the closet and I said that, hey, you know, this is the deal.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, you know, the goddess of force has many avatars. And I said, yes, I know. And she goes, and one of her avatars is she has like 400 husbands.
Yeah,
and
big energy, bro.
I said, really? And she goes, yeah. So you're about love.
You're a goddess. This is basically the conclusion we all must draw.
I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, you know, people have different opinions about it, but more importantly, when they see the three of us, they kind of get it.
Yeah.
I'm sincerely hoping that someday someone will tell me what they get, because yeah.
Can I ask, like, so how old were your kids when this came to pass, and like, what were their initial thoughts, and what are their thoughts now, and how do you guys sort of all do like the big family interactions? I mean, I kind of know because I've been there, but I want
the family interaction is just, you know, he's here with us, and that's it.
And do your kids still live at home? Sorry to cut you off.
No, my son is 27.
What's he up to, by the way?
Oh my God.
He's killing it.
He's killing it. He's the CEO of the company now. They're about to sell. So he has a $500 million company that's about to sell, and he's going to get his cut of it, which will be exciting for him.
Share my phone number, please.
And so he was 17. He was 16, 17 when he found out. My daughter was 20. She got her degree as a doctor in public health and epidemiology at Harvard Public Health, the Chang School of Public Health. So yeah, it was mommy and me going to Harvard together, which was kind of fun.
Cute.
But yeah, no, they are very accepting, and they're very, I would say that sometimes I gain a lot of strength from them.
Because have they been that way the whole time? Like, what was the initial, here's what's happening, what was their reaction?
I think that they were initially worried about Rich and not me.
That makes sense.
That and again, but no, yes, yes, it does, and no, it doesn't. So there are no two-legged bar stools, you
What does
know.
that mean?
So we're each a leg on this bar stool. So if any one of us, our partner, Rich, or I said, I can't do this, I'm out.
It wouldn't work. Yeah.
It wouldn't work. It falls over.
Yeah.
So the kids being worried about Rich, I'm not really sure like exactly where that came from, except for the fact that I think that they had the confidence that mom will communicate her emotions and talk her way through it. And that Rich, like most men, are sitting there, you know, pushing it down.
It's true.
You know, but here we are, and it's been, you know, 11 years, and we're pretty, you know, we are pretty happy.
Seems like you are, yeah.
Definitely.
Also, you guys know how to party.
Yeah, we know how to party.
They do. They're very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the fact that this happened in my early 40s, it wasn't happening in my mid 20s or 30, that the kids were grown up, that it was going to be a family dialogue of like, hey, so it wasn't like, hey, mom's having an affair and she loves men, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think too, that probably facilitated it, the fact that your kids were grown and like, it's no longer about them. Like you were doing the right thing as like an empty nester and leading into yourself and what you wanted in your path. So you kind of explored that. Whereas when they were younger, probably it wouldn't have come to pass because there was so much else going on.
Yeah. And also like they were probably old enough to comprehend something, because it's not an easy concept. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
To kind of, you know, to mostly because of society, you know, because of the norms that we have, you know, and how people fit, like how people think of themselves in there. But I think, you know, once you get older, you can understand more complicated subjects when, you know, versus when you're like a young kid, you know, and you're just comparing yourself to other kids, and it becomes a little bit more difficult then.
Yes, I think you're right. I mean, with them, there was a sense of responsibility to them, but it wasn't the same sense of responsibility as when they were young.
Because they're their own people. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I have another question. This is a topic I want to discuss because you said something to the effect of, I wrote a note, look at me. Like your love for one person does not take away from your love for another person. And that's something I truly believe in as well. But I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting that and recognizing that. Like you can fully love more than one person at a time, in my opinion. Thoughts?
Yes, I believe that you can have sort of that transformational experience with more than one person. I'm gonna go back to this though. Sexually, no. Yeah. I don't want to sleep with multiple people at one time. I don't derive any joy. It becomes a performance piece at that point.
Do you mean like at one literal time? Because
at one literal time.
Okay. I was like, who's not getting laid over there?
So because then it becomes, you know, it becomes a performance piece. I want to be able to have that intimacy and that dialogue individually with one person and be expressive in whatever, you know, again, in whatever avatar I'm experiencing at that moment.
And what works with that person individually. I'm sure you have your own dynamic with each person respectively.
So I have a question. So you guys have a big king size bed, right? And you guys all sleep in it. What happens like when you are, you know, doing your thing with one of
they close the door.
They close the door, but what if it's like nighttime? Like, is there another room that they
there's another room, or there I mean there's a respect quotient, right? So and I think that what is really interesting about our relationship is that, well, two things. One, none of us argue anymore. Because if I'm not understanding something my partner is saying, then Rich is there to kind of explain it to me. If
that's lovely, actually.
If Rich is not understanding me, then
Oh, yeah.
our partner kind of
You
dives
kind of have a
in.
mediator.
There's like a diffusion.
Yeah.
There's an automatic like, hey, you know, love, peace, and joy. Let's all get
like
together.
a mediator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe I should join a throuple.
And
I
I
know,
think,
right? That makes
yeah.
it sound really good.
I couldn't handle it. I'm too
There's
selfish.
no arguments and there's no, I mean, do we get irritated with one another?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that wouldn't be natural if we didn't. But in terms of like arguments where there's communication breakdown, that fear, anger, pain is setting in, and you're feeling defensive and combative, that does not happen for us.
Well, yeah, and you guys also have obviously grown together rather than, you know, kind of like separating paths. I think you had such an investment that somehow, I don't know how you've done it, but like come hell or high water.
About the other element of this is that what words you use end up shaping you.
Oh, for
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
And you start to believe what you're saying to yourself and what
your internal narrative.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to change mine.
Yeah, it's not only the internal dialogue, it's what you're saying about each other to other people.
Yes. Yeah, that's so important.
Like when you refer to somebody as your ex,
yeah,
you know, they're in your past.
ExFacts, follow up.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, I don't know, what would be the word? Transitional friend? I mean,
it depends. You know, a lot of people can't be friends with their ex.
I personally have never been friends with an ex after I broke up with them. And it's not always the same situation.
So Izzy, I have a question for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you the one who wanted to have the friendship with your exes and they didn't want to have one with the friendship? Were you the one who tried to make it more amicable?
No, I did not try to make it more. I think that for me anyways, and I don't necessarily know that this is like a healthy way to go about it, but like, for example, with like a short relationships, like, you know, okay. With one of my exes, like we were dating over the summer because it was like convenient because his friend was dating my best friend. And this was like in college. This was a long time ago. So it was like we never really had like a good basis. We weren't even friends really throughout the relationship. Yeah. So like, why would we be friends after?
Well, that makes, if it's brief, yeah, you like, can let the person go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I wouldn't have been friends with them anyway. So
well, maybe that says a lot.
You know, the whole time I was like, why are you doing this?
Because you're bored and
horny. It was convenient.
Right. Yeah.
It's literally convenient. Because then, you know, whatever. But then the other ones, it's just like, you know, we just never really just reconnected afterwards. So
that's it was really funny because I remember in my college days, and there were a lot of men.
I bet you got mad dick. You're like,
but you know, one of the things that I would always try to make it amicable, and I would always reach out and say, hey, okay, so the romantic part of this ended, but what about having a friendship? And men are just like, oh, you know,
a lot of the time they can't handle
it. And it's different for me for like guys I've just like hooked up with or haven't been like emotionally involved with like that. Then like I'm cool with like a lot of them.
Like, I didn't even really like you to begin with.
Well, no, there just wasn't that history that kind of like, you know, that makes things complicated afterwards, you know?
Well, this is a very like heavy topic for me right now. So I have like my exes, which I have like 3 because I don't know, whatever, but I'm very good friends with all of them because, you know, like you said, like you make that emotional, also they're mature enough to not be like, I never want to talk to you again. So like still very close, but recently I've had a slew since like the announcement of my separation, like a slew of guys who've like come in and like, I have made it very clear that I do not want a relationship. I'm obviously not in a space. I don't know if I ever want like a monogamous relationship again. Right now, I don't feel like I do. But so they get like butthurt basically and like fully ghost me.
Oh yeah.
Which is fine because it's always like a brief little thing, but like that is very counter to my normal experience and how I operate. So like I find myself wanting to be like, how are you doing? Like, is everything okay? But then I'm like, no, they want nothing to do with you. Respect that.
Well,
so it's
I mean, it's like they wanted did they imagine that you were going to offer rebound sex and that would be great?
No, they got that. I think they imagined that I would offer them an emotional attachment. Well, I did offer that as well, but I think they wanted monogamy and they couldn't deal with me not being willing to offer that to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess, okay, to amend my statement earlier that I've never been friends with an ex, I guess I talked with exes and like, and like, I've been like, we've even hung out too, but I guess I'm just not like, I wouldn't call them my best friends. Okay.
Well,
so
you don't have to go, but yeah, you wouldn't like check in and everyone.
Check in with them, but it's not like, any of them, I would like, it's not like I hate them.
So you've been with your present boyfriend for 9 years?
Yes, I have.
How do we feel about marriage? Is that on the horizon? What's going on with that? Because 9 years is a long time.
I mean, I don't really care if we get married.
But you do want to maintain a monogamous relationship.
I do want to maintain a monogamous relationship. I
do. The three of us had a marriage ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's cool.
That's so nice.
Yeah. We went to St. John's, and we rented an Italian villa that was cut into a mountainside. Absolutely exquisite. Spared no expense. The kids were there, and 14 of our closest friends were there.
That's really cool.
And to me, I think I needed that more than the guys did, because I wanted symbolically something that represented us and the day and this union.
And all of you together, not just like the individual
all
relationship. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, making this promise about our life to each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That gets me. So I think now that gets us to a part of our podcast every week that's answering a question from a listener. So today's question from a listener was, what is your definition of romance? I can go first.
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
So my definition of romance, I don't think I have a very typical definition of romance. I mean, I don't like flowers, but I do like edible arrangements.
I thought you were going to say edibles.
Okay.
Like me too. How romantic.
I don't mind good edible. I love edible arrangements. Not for good, just because they taste good. Sure. I don't really like typical things like candlelit dinners or anything like that. And I guess I also in turn don't think of that for other people.
So what is your ideal, that's the most romantic thing anyone has ever done for me? What would that entail?
I think it would entail putting in thought, but having spontaneity. I don't like forced emotions. And that's how I think about flowers or chocolates and stuff like that. I like it when you genuinely feel that way. Yeah. Say you're riding down the road and you see a beautiful sunset, it just happened to happen. Aww. And you might think, oh, that's really beautiful. And that brings up emotions, but you didn't make it happen. Yeah. It happened because it was there basically beforehand.
I think to pivot off of that, not the typical bullshit, whatever that people just see in movies. For me, it's anything that someone knows you and understands you and goes out of their way to specifically do something they know will delight you and be special to you. Yeah. Yeah. Someone for my birthday, made me a cake from scratch, for no reason. Yeah. And if he thought it was my favorite cake, and it wasn't.
Oh.
I don't know where I probably fucked up and gave him that. It was a very good cake and I like it, whatever. But anyways, it's the shit like that, right? Like the effort and the care and like the personal attention to detail. Like, I don't think there's a formula for it. I think you could just tell when it's like truly heartfelt.
And like, and not cliche.
Right. And you?
I think for me, it has always been and will always be a letter. Somebody writes me a letter. One of these two yahoos that I'm spending my life with. I find it transformative because they've expressed something that they can't express verbally. They've taken the time to physically write it out. I get to fold it up and put it in a special box or pull it out and read it as many times as I want or years later.
Yeah.
That I find very, very romantic. And the other thing, you two are probably going to laugh. The other thing is anything that saves me time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like if Rich goes in and folds my clothes in my closet.
I find that very romantic.
Yes. No, that's true. It's the little things like that where you could tell they did it on purpose to like help you out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that one.
I mean, like somebody just looks at your life and goes, "You're really busy. What can I do to help you?"
Yeah. That's the good stuff, especially when you're married and you've been together forever. You know, I mean, we don't need a grand gesture anymore. It's the shit like that keeps it afloat.
And you know, I'll go back to the line that I just said. Love is just an overinflated sense of self. It's infatuation. And because we all go into that zone of like, well, you know, I'm doing this and this is more important than what you're doing. And do you realize what I did? And did you notice that I took care of that? Yeah, there's none of that in our relationship.
It's like self-sacrificial.
It's just like, I see you, I hear you, I think this is what you need, and just rolling up your sleeves.
And I'm willing to make an effort to give that to you.
Because he was tired too, you know, but he offered,
so nice.
That's so nice. Well, anyways, thank you so much.
Sounds
good. Thank you so much for being on.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Join us next week for ExFacts, Relationships and Breakups. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. You can catch a new episode of ExFacts next week. Hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any of the action. We want to hear from you, so leave us a comment or review. Until next time, bye.